I've been coming to these events, startup events, tech events in Miami for a few months, and I just saw a very real gap in events for founders that are actually building something as opposed to pitches or ideas. So I reached out to HardTech Miami and Channing to curate something for Venture Week. So yeah, that's what this is for. Now we're going to hear a bit from Channing, who's the organizer of HardTech.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I just wanted to, conscious of time, one of our speakers has a hard out at 7:30. But yeah, HardTech Miami is basically the premier organization for people, the startup community building with atoms, not just bits. So think industrials, manufacturing, biotech, anything that you can think of that's not just AI, software, crypto, Web3. That's us. And we've been going for a couple of years. We have 2,000 plus members, founders, investors, operators, everybody who's trying to build this community into something really great. So we appreciate everybody coming here tonight. Yeah, a couple of speakers we've been honored to have in the past include Catherine Boyle from Andreessen Horowitz, Delian Asperoha from Founders Fund, David Benheim from Mark Forged, and our community has just an outstanding amount of talent. You're going to hear from three of them today. If you want to get involved, support, what have you, we have some merch. You can scan this QR code. We also have them in sheets like this. There's a t-shirt called Go Hard Tech or Go Home. It's been a crowd favorite. So when you get a chance after the show, go and scan that and check us out. We also have a website linked on there as well. And back to Sophia.
Not for long, because now Ashley from Mindspace is going to be giving a little intro to the space.
Quickly, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Ashley Almonte. I'm the Director of Marketing for Mindspace US. I'm not sure if you have been in this space before, but this is a co-working flex office space with 50 locations across the world. We have 6 locations in the US, this one in downtown Miami, New York, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. We have everything from like private offices for like 2 persons to big suites for 60 persons, or like even whole floors for enterprises. We offer event spaces like this one, venues, meeting rooms, office space, day passes if you want to come for the day. We are also doing a whole week, like this week and next week. You can redeem the promo code Venture Week 26 for a day pass if you want to come try this space. And we're always, aside from that, aside from just being an office space, we're building community. And we're opening our space to communities like this one because we want to make sure that we are one with the community and we're supporting and the growth of the tech community, of the startups, and everyone that wants to do something good in this space. So if you have any questions, I'll be around throughout the event. And yeah, welcome to Mindspace.
So that was Ashley and Channing. Event wouldn't be possible without them, so thank you to them so much for collaborating with me on this. Now we're going to go straight into a bit of background on the engineering design process and how we're trained on this. A lot of us are already familiar with this, but when we set out to design a product or a feature, we generally go through an iterative cycle of discovery, definition, prototyping, and testing, and then refining that product until its end. So generally we start with finding out our users' needs. And I actually have a cool story about this one. So oftentimes users will come to you with either a solution already thought out or just a general complaint that we're expected to decode. So for example, I was working on a project with a surgeon and he just came to us and was like, I need a camera on the tip of this surgical tool. But what he really needed wasn't a camera, he just needed visibility when placing a chest tube to be able to not puncture internal organs. So once you decode that into its very core need, you get a lot of different other solutions beyond just camera. We then move on to translating those user needs into actual metrics and design inputs that we're able to verify afterwards. And then we use those to guide our ideation, where we come up with different solutions that will be able to solve those user needs. We then move on to prototyping and testing. A cool example of this for killer tests, which is when we choose to test the feature that is most likely to hurt the progress of the project, is SpaceX when they were just starting out. They just wanted to test if the engine that they had would be able to create the lift that they needed for the weight of the rocket that they were trying to launch. So they just got a team of water tower builders, and they built this metal structure that would have a similar weight and structure to the actual rocket. And then they started doing a bunch of tests with that, and they got really scrappy, and then they saved millions of dollars instead of building out a full rocket first. And then the cycle continues, and we keep iterating on that feature or that product until it's refined. But now, that's just a theory. We're going to hear from an actual panel of people that have done this time and time again, which are our panelists, which I'm going to invite up to sit with us now. So these founders, I had so much fun researching them. They have a lot of, they're very seasoned, they have a lot of cool products behind them. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves now because I wouldn't be able to do them justice. Maybe you can start, Ethan.
Sure. Ethan Loosbrock, founder of Oros. We're building higher energy density lithium-ion batteries through better chemistry.
Thanks. Hanan Happy, CEO, co-founder of Exawatt. We are powering the AI boom using dispatchable solar products that we call the Exawatt P3. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, worked in the industry at companies like Siemens, General Electric, Tesla, and prior to this started and ran another company developing drones for military applications.
Hi, Sophia. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Amir Machap. I'm the co-founder of MicroHub, previously founder of Earth Robotics, where we pivot to MicroHub. And prior startups, I had my first company called Bmart, where I built a future phone that sells in Latin America, sold over 200,000 units in the first 2 years, and then selling the company. Then eventually going to different software companies. Having a great CTO that I have from day one, which is my brother, is not here today. And yes, happy to share more with you.
So thank you guys so much for being here and for your time. Hopefully there's so much to learn for the audience to learn from you guys. So we're gonna go into the first question, which relates directly to the presentation, which is all products have an end user who has goals and needs in using your product. How do you go about translating those user needs into something that you can actually build, from a complaint to a design spec? I believe, Amir, you had a good example for this. So maybe you can start.
Well, I learned this in the hard way. Actually, as I mentioned, we pivot after building level 5 of the robot, whole ecosystem, 2 years of development, 1 year almost in the market trying to sell the robot ecosystem to the buildings, because the main idea was to the robot place the robots in the lobby, receive all the food delivery, and then brings those deliveries to the resident doorstep. After building all that, I started hearing the customer, which is the main point here always. And when I hear the customer after visiting different buildings, all of them, they were saying, I love your robot, I love your product, but can you help me with the package room? There is where I have a mess. I have 300 packages just there. And I hear the same story, I think, for 5 different properties. And in that moment, I decided, okay, we have to build a new product, which is MicroHub. Today, MicroHub is a package management solution based on software. We build an app ecosystem that consists in a management, a warehouse management system for the package room, a user app, and also a delivery app for the operators. The main idea of that, and thinking about how we can use the hardware or what we built, is we want to reintroduce our robots in our own service. So always hear your customer is the learn here.
Do you have a good example for this? For translating your user and what they need into what you actually ended up designing?
I think the example I have is it's really, really important, like similar to what you were saying, to understand what is actually the problem you're solving for. And I think as engineers, we tend to dive into the solution very quickly. So one example is we were having a design review. I asked one of our engineers to define the problem statement he was trying to solve for, and he spent 2 weeks, came back to me and wrote a 6-page document about the problem, and we started like reading through it, and it turns out like all these solutions, right? And I said, no, this is too long. Like, make it shorter. He spent another 2 weeks trying to make it shorter, and it was 3 pages, but it was still not the problem. And I said, I don't think you understand the problem. Like the problem is very simple. But if you can't explain it in one sentence, then you don't really understand the problem. And I think as engineers, we don't spend enough time really thinking about what is it that we're trying to solve for. We're so excited to start tinkering and developing and building, and then you build the wrong product, and you have to pivot out of it. But I think it's better to start thinking about the problem longer. And the other thing that we are uncomfortable doing as engineers, and I've had this in every startup, is we always think we have to build the product first before we can go showcase it to a customer and sell it. And the reality is you don't need to build anything for a very long time. Like you need to really have connection. People want this. You can get away a long way with just showing people like what is the vision for what we're trying to build. And it is possible that you're in the garage and you're tinkering and you stumble onto something that people suddenly want, but it's more likely that you want to spend more time understanding what is it that customers want, and then go build a solution for that. And that's an iterative process, and that creates a lot of false starts, probably.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could maybe, I think that was a great answer. I'd maybe add some, maybe like personal anecdotes and stuff. I think, so I worked in batteries for a few years, and I think like from inside the industry, certain industries, it can be a lot easier to get access to knowledge that people aren't always willing to share. So you have like a different perspective. So some industries, it's a lot easier to build products for from outside. Others, sometimes you need an insider view, or at least someone on your team with an insider view. And then for batteries, batteries are used all over the place, and so like there are hundreds or thousands of different customers, and so they all have like a different use case, and they have like very different stack rank priorities, and so figuring out for us, it's like a lot more about figuring out how can you like sort of chunk together the right groups of customers to build a product for more than just one bespoke customer, and so like I've found that asking and forcing customers to stack rank their priorities is very helpful for that, because you can get some clarity into like what specs can I actually let go, or like have a little slack on, and then what are the actual critical needs for the customer.
Awesome, thank you guys. I would say that maybe all three of your products have a rather abstract user. Like you're not designing for a customer specifically, like the same way that a consumer products company would. So what are some of the intricacies of navigating that for you guys?
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of the stuff we do and design, like customers just don't care about. So for us, it's like, you know, like figuring out the right way to present it to customers. So in batteries, for some customers, it's just like they want to see a data sheet, and if the data sheet looks good, or at least as good or better than what they're using now, then they're interested enough to buy. Other customers, that's not the case, and so yeah, like you have to somehow make it legible for people, because none of our customers know chemistry or care about any of the stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would second that, and I always tell the team, nobody cares what the product does, it's what's inside the box. Like nobody cares. What like our customers want is power. They want electrons, and I even joke, if like you guys have to go sit in the box and hand crank an engine and make electrons as a customer, it makes zero difference. So, and I think sometimes we get too obsessed with like, oh, what's inside the box and how does it work and what's the chemistry, what is it? At the end of the day, the customer doesn't care at all. They want power, and however you give it to them, that's really secondary for them. And that's why coming back to what is the problem you're solving for.
Mhm.
The problem you're solving for is not the chemistry or the size of the box or the energy mix or whatever. Like the problem we're solving for is power. How you get it, probably they don't care.
Fair
Um,
enough.
in the first, second order, third order magnitude, maybe down the list, eventually like, oh, is it also like green or something like that? But first you have to give them what they need, yeah.
Well, in our case, it's a little bit different. We work with end users, even if our customers are developers and property management and asset managers. The end user is important, but for example, when we build the robot back in the days, we need a robot that can feed a pizza, a Costco pizza, but at the same time that it be ADA compliant. So it was a challenge in that moment. So we built actually all the technology in the smart part on the chassis, and just around where the box goes is just cameras and radars. But it was a challenge in that moment to have all that motor controllers, batteries, the wires, the distance between the wires, for the communication. It was hard, and also you were on the innovation side. I never built a robot in the past, so sometimes you get stuck like 2, 3 months in solving one issue because you need that 2 millimeters, because you need that, and you spend like 2 months of burning cash that you have in the account just to solve that issue. So there is some challenges that sometimes are all together in terms of how you are building and for who you are building in that case. Another thing that we have in particular is that I'm a little picky on the product design. I like to have a perfect product, if it's inside or outside. I don't care if they don't see the inside. I like to have a perfect product, and sometimes that costs you more money. I'm picky on that. I put pressure on it, and also help in terms of having a product that could, like I say, the chassis is modular. You can build a future bigger robots or different type of product using the same technology that you already built. It makes things easier for the future.
Thank you, guys. This was specifically for Hanan. I believe in my research, I read that you guys had to iterate through a lot of different designs before you came up with your last one. So I'm sure the audience would like to hear about what that process looked like and what were the factors that influenced your decision making in that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we started the company, we put a very specific lens on how we want to approach it, which was a unit economics lens. So we said we're very religious about unit economics. And to make that point, we set the goal for the company, even without having a product in mind, which was to generate electricity at 1 cent per kilowatt hour. And we're saying, okay, if we can do that, then that's going to be valuable to these customers. And so that was really how we kind of approached the product iteration, which was every time we would develop a prototype, we would build a bill of materials for it and look at bill of materials and say, what is the output of this? Can this get to 1 cent per kilowatt hour at scale? And then kind of start with the process of eliminating things that we didn't need. And essentially, if you want to make something cheap, you have to make it small enough. And by the way, like this approach is a little bit contrarian for engineering. So if you're building a thermodynamic system like a rocket or an engine or a battery, whatever, you want to build the largest system possible because actually thermodynamically that's the most efficient. But what we said is like that's the mistake that often people make is try to go build large systems. Large systems take a long time to build, take a lot of money to build, and by the time you build it, might turn out to be the wrong thing to build. So we said, let's go build small things, less efficient. We understand the efficiency penalty, but we can iterate on them faster. And every iteration is about take out weight, take out parts, take out complexity, and don't do the things that you don't need to do. Like you mentioned the SpaceX example, that kind of reminded me of. I always tell the engineering team, this is how I stack rank engineers. Like a bad engineer was someone who can't design anything that works at all. A good engineer is someone who can design something that works sometimes but is not on budget and not on spec. A great engineer is someone who can design something that works all the time but is not on budget and not on spec. An amazing engineer is someone who can design something that can work all the time, is on budget, on spec. And then the genius level engineer is the one who buys it from Amazon. So there's engineers, as engineers, we take a lot of pride in designing the box. And I always tell them, why do we design the box? Don't design the things that you don't need to design, right? That's no one's going to give you a reward. And sometimes people are like, so what am I here to do then? Why? You're here to find what's on Amazon to buy and figure out what's not here to buy, and then we can go innovate on that. And a lot of times we go design the box because it makes us feel busy and we take pride in it. And look at my shiny box. Like, nobody cares, right? And so that's the process of iterating fast, make it small, make it cheap, and just shut out weight, shut out parts, shut out complexity. That's the only way you can get to essentially where you're at. And the version of the product you see online and what we have presented is something that nobody had dreamed about. Like we didn't know that it's going to look like this. It's not like I had a dream it's going to look like this. Let's go build it. It just came out of iterating on these kind of aspects. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually personally curious. Was the thermal battery like an initial hunch that you had, or was that something that you guys reached through all this iteration?
No,
Did
it
what
was
else did you
really
consider?
iterative. Yeah, iterative. Like it was, what can I buy from Amazon? Like not literally Amazon, but online essentially. And how can I iterate around those things that I can buy online and make them better and faster and so on and so forth. And a lot of times engineers we say like, well, that's not product innovation, that's systems integration. But that's how all products start, right? Even if you think about Apple computers, right? It was basically started with a circuit board and put stuff in that they could find online, and then it came up with other versions and so on and so forth. So you're never going to go inside your garage and invent something. I said never. Rarely you're going to go inside your garage and invent something that the world has never seen before. And this is the other thing I always tell the team, and myself as well. Whenever you have an idea, most certainly someone else has had that idea. You just haven't searched deep enough to find the person who had that idea and failed. So I would say go search deeper and deeper and deeper. And I tell the team we're standing on the shoulders of giants because every topic that we run into, when you Google it, there's about 1,000 papers written on it. And sometimes the team like, oh, this nobody's tackled this before. And then 2 seconds later, you can find it, and we just don't want to admit that what we're facing is not, we think it's very new, but it's very, very, very new. And in the age of AI and physical AI and all that stuff, the pace at which things are iterating is so fast that it's almost probably definitely someone has done the thing that you think you want to do that you never, you can't buy online. Yeah.
Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing that as much as I did. Thank you so much, Anna. This one's for Ethan. So, given that your product is mainly targeting eVTOLs right now, do you have any anecdotes about elegant subtraction and simplifying something where you could be choosing to add complexity instead?
Yeah, I think there's like sort of the core of our product is a simplification. So basically, like our cathode material is lithium oxide. Traditional cathode materials are NMC, so nickel manganese cobalt oxide, or lithium iron phosphorus, and then four oxygens. So by using just lithium oxide, we're pretty much just eliminating all of these metals, and so your supply chain is much simpler. We have one input instead of three or four. We don't have to worry about the purity of all these things, the shipping of all these things, the costs, the sort of mining and refining of them. So that's probably like the most relevant simplification that we've taken.
Thank you. Let's see. What about pivoting? So I don't have anyone in mind specifically for this one, but imagine you're 6 months into developing a core feature of your product, and maybe you have a hunch that it's not going to work. Maybe you're actually starting to see evidence. What are those hints that something isn't working and that you're going to need to pivot, and how are you going to go about that pivot?
I think for us, like if there's like a lot of if there's like that much uncertainty around what process is right or what specific instantiation is right, like we optimize for speed, so we'll do like many different things in parallel, or as many as possible, and so like it's less of a pivot than just like killing off the things that don't work. Um, and we're sort of lucky enough to have enough funding to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say one of our cultural values is accelerate feedback loops. And so what that means is really figure out how can you shorten the feedback loop to learn from whatever you need to learn from. But the main kind of premise of that is you define what is a feedback loop and what are you trying to get out of this experiment or this hypothesis, whatever, and try to figure out how do I get there as fast as possible, and then try to accelerate that with other means. And I think the pivot is the same thing. Is like you have to decide what is the thing that I'm trying to get feedback on. What is my go no go criteria? Do I want the customers to sign up? Do I want someone to pay me? Do I want this performance metric or whatever? And I think you've got to really try to define the shortest feedback loop possible. And sometimes we just, define these extremely long feedback loops. It's going to take us 5 years to figure out this. That's not a feedback loop. And if you do, and you've wasted 5 years of your life. So if you can figure out how to find the shortest feedback loop and accelerate that iteration, it's going to help you not necessarily pivot, but guide the boat in the right direction. That's the other thing that I think most of us misunderstand, or engineers misunderstand about startups. They think like it's pivoting, but the reality is, if you've ever sailed before, you never sail in a straight line, right? You tack, you go left, you go right, especially if you're going upwind. And if you think about the startup journey, you're trying to sail upwind. Nobody sails straight, right? You always have to tack left and right, left and right, left and right, and you want to try to make that motion as small as possible. And I always tell the team the number one advantage we have against everyone else is that if you think of a startup as a speedboat versus a big company as a giant Navy ship, the speedboat can change direction millions of times within an hour. The Navy ship takes, 1,000-person crew to change direction by 1 degree. So I don't think you should think of it as a pivot in the great sense. Maybe it's just tacking left and right to go to the general direction. If you have your North Star is very clear, you know where your ultimate goal is. And this is the other thing, no road is straight when they are building it. It's straight in retrospective, like, oh yeah, this is how you connect the dots and how you get there. So I don't think you should be worried about tacking left and right. It's just what it takes to go upwind.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Basically, we are pivoting every week on everything. It's not just in one segment or in the product itself. You are pivoting even with the team that you have. You start with a salesperson. You think that person is the genius that you are looking to have, and ends after a month that is not the right match. So you pivot again until you find the right way to do the things. And it's with everything, with the product, with the team, with the culture of the company, how you're getting the culture of the company, the communication that we have, the processes, how, in my case, with the software development team, we have a different way to do trainings every week than on the sales team, because sales cycles are longer in this way. But when I started, I didn't know that my sales cycle is 4 months. Until I noticed that the average give me that is 4 months. Now I can measure that, because something that we don't know when we are in a startup is how we measure something that we never have done. So the pivoting is important. They put the ego in a room and close it and lock it, because that allows you to pivot faster, quicker. You are not the genius that is bringing everything. If you are the founder and you are a CEO, that's nothing. You are one more, especially in a young startup where you are like, I don't know, four team, 5, 6, 10. I believe that you throw all the ideas on the table. You can, of course, you can measure the time. You can say, you know what, I'm gonna give to this an opportunity of 2 weeks, 1 month, 6 months. You measure the risk, you measure the budget, and you take the decision. There is where you have to think more than if it's you're pivoting or not. So I think that as startups, we have to pivot every week on what we're doing. The sailing is a great methodology.
Thank you guys. Also, Hanan, whenever you need to go, if you want to.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, well, everyone clap for Hanan, please. This last one is, I think, better suited for Ethan, but for VMV and testing, given that your product is used in aerospace and generally vehicles that carry people, what practices have you learned to prioritize, and maybe what VMV practices have you learned maybe are not that important and kind of just waste your time in your runway?
Yeah, so to clarify, we don't have our batteries in any like vehicle carrying or like passenger carrying capacities yet. Most of our customers are like unmanned systems, unmanned drones. But like, yeah, I mean, a lot of times people, like all of our customers, kind of know what they need themselves better than we do. So there are certifications for each different application you have to go through. Some of them overlap. Like a lot of the testing is the same, so you can kind of make good assumptions about if you pass like one certification that you'll pass these other ones. But um, yeah, I think like there are almost always ways of like sort of getting a rudimentary handle on how good you are at a given thing for much cheaper than actually having to go through like the rigorous testing of a certification.
Right.
And so anytime you can sort of cheat that and sort of save yourself time and money and effort down the road, that's usually what we opt for.
Do you have anything in particular in mind for the time that you did that?
Yeah, so I mean, like we built, so in batteries, like there's a nail penetration test, which is basically you drive a nail through the battery and you see like what happens. And so, you know, we didn't wait until we have like a full commercial battery to do this. We were doing this early on with like small sample cells and measuring the same sort of things like heat, smoke, fire early on, and so had a pretty good confidence in how we were doing on that metric uh, well before we had like the money and team to go through those testing.
Awesome. Was that like an industry sort of known hack, or was that something that you guys came up with?
I mean, like you can buy systems that do this nail penetration test, but they're like tens of thousands of dollars, and it's like a lot easier to just build one yourself and drive a nail through it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else, DMD? Sure. Well, those are all the questions I had prepared, so I'm gonna open it up to the audience now to ask anything. Sure, go ahead.
Firstly, like, thank you all for your time. It was super cool to see, especially in Miami. My question is, I guess more so business model focused, but also can pertain to engineers with regards to relates to like buy versus build. How do you guys think about vertically integrating, especially like getting to a minimum viable product versus like scaling to, you know, where I guess Anand's not here, but you mentioned like unit economics being important, like reaching like economics that makes sense at a scale level. How do you guys like approach that?
I think for us, like the customer drives a lot of this. It's like you know, if you for us, like you know, like the state of the art in batteries are like cathode materials are very weak, and so it was like you can with just a cathode get a sort of like much better product than anything else, and then from there you look at all of the other subcomponents of a battery, and you say, okay, well, which of these have like the lowest lift for like potentially outsized return on either product metrics or unit economics, and yeah, I think there's like some like rough math you can do on stack ranking, like how much is it going to cost to build this yourself, like what is your expected value or like your marginal expected value of unit economics, or maybe it's a price premium, and then yeah, like how long is it going to take, how many people do you need, that sort of stuff. So there's a you can try and codify with like some rough mathematics.
So when you're building the company and you have a product, the unit economics matter exactly or probably more than the product itself sometimes. You have to model what is your business model. You know, you have to go and build a forecast, understand your cost in building the product and for prototype, and then building the product as mass production. You need to know the cost in advance, and then you go and see what is the competitors, what is their available. Maybe your competitor is completely a different solution, but they already set a price on the market, so you can have something to measure and take that price that is on the market and see if your business and your business model that you're putting in place makes sense. So when you go out, makes sense. And for an MVP, there is a GTM strategy that you put in place by phases, right? So if you have the first customer, you give them all let's say you have like 5 bonus to give. So for the third customer, you're gonna invest in those 5 bonus just to validate product. You're not gonna make money. You just want to see if they want the product or forget about the business model. For the second, you get just the 4 bonus until you finish. Maybe in the first year, you stabilize your business model with the price that you want to be, and the whole structure of the business model, your forecast, is based on that last pricing structure that you have. So that is the way to balance a GTM MVP product with the market price. That's what I think, and this is the way how I do it.
Anyone else?
Question for you guys. What's the craziest thing that you guys have done to save money?
I love that question.
Go first.
Well, to save money, you don't know what you can get in Hialeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes it's crazy, and it's a huge gap. It's amazing. But for saving money sometimes is to go and see what is in the market. Just I think he just said it before, like buy what is in the market, and you can save thousands of dollars. So I think that is a way. But also pressure. Who's selling you the thing? Like you can go and I don't want to pay this. I do some more research. 2 quotes, 3 quotes is not good enough. You need 10 quotes. Go for it. Talk to them. Explain the situation. Sometimes startup they think we are big companies. No, we are not. Go for it. Ask for them. Explain your story and try to sell them the story. Maybe they give you a good price. One of the things that happened to us and the company, building the company, we end out of money in some point. And we had the opportunity to build another product in the middle of the construction of the company, build the other product, sell the other product, fund the company with that money, and continue. That was crazy. It was 1 year, but give us enough money to run what we want to go. So it's saving money and also understand how you collect money and bring money to the company.
I think there have been a few times where we'll make a big purchase and there'll be a long lead time, and then by the time the end of the lead time, comes, we either don't have the money to pay for it, or it's like it would put us in jeopardy, and so we just have sort of drag out terms longer and longer and longer, and it's in some ways like a free loan that way. But yeah, we do always pay though, so very, very important.
Let's do maybe 2 more, if anyone else.
Yeah, so I'm building an AI platform to relocate positions quickly and reliably using resilient, sustainable, modular systems. My question is, how can we create AI that doesn't just sit in the background, but genuinely helps businesses discover and act on opportunities while keeping decisions transparent and ethical?
So maybe less of a hardware question, but definitely renting your engineering brains out a little bit.
We just hire an engineer to focus on AI because it's changing every week. It's super fast. Whatever you read today, in 2 weeks is completely different. Something is better. So we don't have the answer today for that. We're gonna see it eventually. The one that the market will shape that. Something that is hard to say today. I believe that the companies they will need to have an expert on AI that helps them drive to the right position because it's so fast. You know.
Maybe last one. Anybody?
Yeah, what were your highest of highs and lowest of lows, and how did you get out of them?
Scared of the high.
Maybe a little bit of thinking as well. Highs, highs, lows, lows. The worst thing you can think of.
Your favorite battle story, war story. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I think every fundraise has been like sort of lows just before we get funded and then highs afterward. Like that we spent a year and a half or so before we really saw any of the like clean data we wanted to see. So after a certain amount of time, it can be very demoralizing, especially if you're trying all kinds of processes, spending tons of money, and you're sort of like driving towards the cliff. But then when it works, it's incredible. So
What have you had to do to get out of it?
I think it's just you have to go through it. Like there's no. I think like just staying focused on the path is the only. Yeah, I'd say.
Well, the lowest is when you have to pay payroll and you don't have money. It's hard. It hit very hard. Funders, co-funders conversations that they get super, uh, hard conversations. And in my case, my co-founder is my brother. So it's like, okay, we have 5 hour debates about things, 6 hours, and then, okay, let's go have some food in my home. Those things for me are like super tense in terms of the forecast accomplish. Sometimes you put in more in the Q2, I'm gonna accomplish this, and then it's Q6, Q4, and it's not there, and how you feel about it, what I did wrong. I'm working like 80 hours a week on this, what happened? And then the highs, I think we don't have highs. We like to be always on lows. we approach them, and have the pressure always on us. That's I think every startup founders have that on their DNA.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. Everyone, please give a round of applause. Now we can move on to a little bit of networking. If you have any leftover questions, maybe something to bring up with audience members. But we're gonna move into the lounge now,